Welcome to the Chip and Candy Show podcast, episode 2. So far, not going any more smoothly than episode 1.
Let's be honest. If you've listened to episode 1, you will understand that it literally took us 3 attempts to get the first episode out.
Yes.
We are now into take 2.
Yes,
attempt 2.
Also, I'd like to add that
Of the second
the
episode.
first episode is not actually out as of yet,
Yes.
but we're trying to be prepared this time.
We're trying to learn, I'm not going to say from our mistakes, even though they are definitely mistakes. We are trying to learn about, from our journey,
Yes.
We're trying to learn about all the things that can go wrong
And
when
this
trying to
is-
put a podcast together.
This is our podcasting journey for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes. Even tonight,
Yep.
we tried to do this afternoon. I think maybe from now on we make sure I'm fed.
Yes.
first.
See, Candy suffers from this thing that many humans suffer from, and it is the hangry syndrome.
I
So
do.
if she is not fed appropriately
Yes.
before said podcasts,
Yes.
then the tummy does start to rumble and we need to stay.
yeah.
But we have had a very, very nice meal.
We have. It's not necessarily the tummy starts to rumble. More me, I start to grumble.
Well, as you know, and we're going to talk a bit about this maybe in this podcast, because you've done a degree in naturopathy.
Yes. And
Yes, thank you. I got
nutrition.
it right. Because you've done, start that again. Because you've done a degree in naturopathy, a diploma in naturopathy,
And
you'll
nutrition.
know that there is a connection. What is it?
And nutrition.
And nutrition. Sorry, correction there. Naturopathy and nutrition. That there is a connection between the stomach and the
Yes.
mind.
Yep.
And if the two aren't, flowing together, so
Yeah.
to speak,
Yeah.
you can get a little bit
Yes. Then we have to
sidelined.
stop.
We have to stop.
And eat. And
Yes.
then we decided instead of trying to come back to the podcast, we're just going to start again.
Yeah.
So here we are.
And here we are, and we've
Here we
started
are.
again.
But
and
at
it's
least
fantastic.
we're on the same day this time.
That's right. Yes, we didn't
Yes.
have to close down production. We didn't have to wait a week. We've taken what we've taken, and we've got some good stuff from the first stuff that we, that we recorded, and
Yeah.
maybe that will make it. Maybe it won't. We'll see
Maybe
what
it
happens.
might be a promo again. We might use this as
I still maintain the fact that what we're doing. Episode 2 for those that are listening, like it's not easy. It's think of it like this. Putting a podcast together, literally trying to do what we're trying to do, is like standing up in front of your, standard 4 class, if you use standard 4 or year 5, like our son is, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and doing your first speech times like 1,000,000. This is not easy, like it's
also not, I wouldn't necessarily say it's hard either. It's niggly.
niggly. Oh, that's a great word for it. It's
not
niggly.
Like it's not
Yeah.
like it's physically hard. It's
Yeah.
just not as smooth
Yeah.
as
The other things that we're used to doing, like, our actual day-to-day stuff. Yeah.
Although honestly, like the first few videos that I filmed, they were niggly too. Like it takes a bit of time to get into the role of things, for things to start feeling natural, comfortable, to get in the flow, right? We're just not
100%.
in flow yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also like,
In podcast flow. We're not in
podcast flow.
podcast
Yeah, we're not in
flow.
podcast flow yet, but at least like you guys that are listening can understand, hey, they're real. We're not trying to put on anything that's fake by any means.
And it's giving us content.
Exactly. Yeah, like you guys get to hear these stories about, hey, we tried and we fucked up. And so we're going to try and we're going to keep trying and try again, because at the, at the core of this podcast and this journey that we're trying to do, we're trying to also instill energy, and we're trying to tell you guys that if you have something, that you want to really achieve or, set your heart into doing, sometimes you're going to fail. Sometimes it's not going to feel great, but you got to keep going. You got to keep going. You got to keep going.
So yeah, why don't we start with what did we do today? What was one thing that we did today?
Great day for all the parents out there. Parent-teacher interviews today.
Yes.
So we've also had that. We've come from which went very well on the whole. Not to get too much into that, but it did remind me. I brought up a couple of the old memories.
Yes.
Very distant memories, I must say. We're
Yeah.
talking 90. Oh gosh. 95, 94, 95.
What were your school interviews like? What did your teachers say about you?
Great question. I think that I've pushed that all deep down inside and just, never really paid any attention to it. I think that I was just such a wonderful kid, and my mind's eye was always perfect. No, I mean, I don't even remember if I got, because we got to sit in. We got to sit in. Did you get to sit in? I felt like we sat outside and it was parent-teacher interview, and then like mum would come out, either smoke coming out of her ears because it didn't go that well, or we'd go to the ice cream shop and get an ice cream because, I don't know. I can't remember. But what about you? Like in terms of...
Oh yeah, I'm the same. Have definitely blocked that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I can't really remember the process. I do remember some of the comments, probably either comments in my report, or because I did a lot of like Kit McGrath and number works, like all those tutoring. I definitely remember what they said about me.
Yeah.
Which was just that I didn't have the confidence to actually write my answers down.
Yeah. Well,
and that I could work it out.
Yes.
I just had to actually get it on paper and have courage that what I think is right.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because we were talking before about pressure, like kids these days. Well, I mean, kids always, let's be honest, because we're talking about you, but like the pressure that exists that we put on ourselves, even at such an early age.
Yeah, the pressure from society, the pressure from external stimulus
and
I
expectations.
Guess. Yes. Yeah.
And
expectations of society, expectations of your parents, your family, expectations that you put on yourself.
It's hard to be 9. It's hard to be a 9-year-old.
It's hard to be a kid. It's hard to be an adult.
It's hard to be an adult. It's just hard. Life is hard.
Life is hard.
Okay, cool. We'll call this podcast. It was great. So episode 2, and we've nailed it. Life is hard. Life is hard.
But you've just got to push through, right?
You've got to push through. I love the fact that you brought up the comments and the report cards. I remember, because I think I've told you the story as well. I remember, I think 5th form economics, like one of the only things that I remember, because I'd never heard the word gregarious before. And
it's not often used.
No, not often used. So there you go, guys. If you're listening to this, go and look up, Google gregarious. That is what my 5th form economics teacher said about myself. She said, Chip is I think she said even like interesting child, which is another way of saying... Interesting. Like, what am I, an X-Men? Like, am I, Chip is an interesting child.
Is that because she couldn't write down what she actually wanted to say?
Let's be honest,
as a teacher.
Exactly. I think it was more like, Chip's a little shit that, speaks out of turn, distracts her. Chip is an interesting child. And then it was something along the line, he has a gregarious nature, or he's very gregarious. And I remember my mum was reading the report out, and she was like, "Well, she left school when she was like 15. What is gregarious? Does she think she's smarter than me?" And then that's how that conversation kind of went. It's very interesting remembering the different reports and things that we had. But yes, parent-teacher interview today, and we thought episode 2, like, what a great way to kind of like intro into what we want to talk about. Obviously, if you have been listening to episode 1. You'll know the journey that we're on, but we wanted to give you a bit of background. We wanted to give you a bit of background on who we are, where we're coming from, and we thought this would be a great place to start. So, Candace, I'd like to start with you, please, if we can.
Oh.
By the way, I'd also like to say that you're looking very good this evening.
Thank you.
And that's not just coming from the husband's handbook, or maybe it is. So,
I mean,
maybe it is.
I did swap out my jeans that I was wearing earlier to some comfy leggings, because we are sitting on a couch
Yes.
and you guys can only see this part of me. Or if you're on the podcast, you can only hear me. Perfect.
Perfect. But I'd also like to say as well, like it's not that comfortable sitting the way we're sitting. Like we've made it up to obviously look, like we're in a
so casual.
So casual. So
I
you've
would
got to be
never
comfy.
sit
Yes.
on the couch.
I myself am not wearing any undies. So, like I've obviously taken that. No, I'm just joking. I'm wearing 3 pairs. So
He's wearing the regular amount of
underwear.
Yes.
As far as you know. So background, so I want to start with you. Now, I obviously know your story very well, but you have an amazing, incredible story. And I'm not going to take the words out of your mouth. Left home when you were 16. You
I was
did
17,
16.
Yeah. Still at high school, but living out of home.
Didn't have the normal journey through university, which you'll be able to tell us about. Like an incredible pageant life, the beauty queen kind of journey, traveling the world, then also living in Europe for a long extended period of time. So many different jobs and so many different things, and then coming back, leaving an office job, like a steady paycheck to start your own business, going from that business back into study, and then running what you have now, which is a 6-figure business, and starting another one. I'm out of breath just trying to give the intro. So, amazing journey.
What more is there to say? That sums it up.
Well, there you go.
That's my life, people. But
even in that is pretty incredible. And I'm just, the outsides of the puzzle. You can fill the rest. But yeah, let's talk about your background. Where did it come from? Where did it start? Hey, over to you. Like, fill the gaps.
Yeah. How far back are we going? I guess I'll just give a very brief until we start getting to some of the juicy parts.
Well, why don't we do it like this in terms of, we want people to get value out of our podcast.
Yeah,
we don't want you guys to just tune in and go, well, here's these 2 people having a couple of wines and talking shit, even though we are going to talk a lot of shit and drink a lot of wine. But we want some authenticity, don't we?
Yeah.
We want people to be able to listen to this. This is our episode to kind of, give you a little bit of a background, a little bit of nature in terms of who we are. As I said, you've lived an incredible life. Tell the people. Let's start from maybe like around high school level and go from there.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to start just briefly before that.
Perfect.
Like literally 2 lines. So schooling wise, I wouldn't say an intelligent, like things didn't come easily, but I would try hard, right? And so that's how I was all throughout school, that I would put in effort, but things don't come naturally. Yes. And then I also have never been that sort of person that really fit in at
I like
school.
this. I like this.
So this is why I'm going back to that, because then it'll help bring
I like this though. We could do a whole podcast on that as well.
So I was a kid that didn't really fit in. I didn't really have any friends. I literally had one friend at primary and intermediate. Went to high school. Sort of like really struggled around there, trying to find my foot, trying to figure out where I fit in.
For sure.
Really close with my family, but at the time at high school, Mum and I just weren't getting along.
Yep.
So as you said, moved out while I was still at high school. Went to uni, and all the kind of stuff that I'd been going through as a kid, not fitting in, not knowing who I am, not being able to find my way, meant that I was depressed for more than 4 years.
Yes.
Which started when I was in high school and throughout my first years of uni. So I went to uni and started studying everything. So I first started studying health science. I was really into medicine, helping people. I really wanted to do that. I really wanted to make a difference, do something that was fulfilling and beneficial to other people. Health science, really, really hard.
Yeah, well, yeah. To be a doctor, you've got to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty onto it, pretty smart.
Yeah, really hard. This is also after being in the year just after they changed from whatever it was to NCEA.
Oh, yes, yeah. What was before us? So we were NCA school cert and then sixth form certificate and then bursary.
Yeah. So in that transition and trying to figure out, the schooling system, they were trying to figure out how it works. We were still trying to figure out how it works. So I almost didn't get into university, actually.
Yeah.
Almost didn't get in. Then was like, screw it, I'm going to go and try and be a doctor. Whilst also mentally not being in a good place. Being rock bottom.
Yeah. I don't want to run over that quickly because yes, we could spend a whole podcast on this, but I think that, and I feel that there will be listeners listening to us right now that can associate with that.
Yeah.
And, at the core of this, it is about mindset and it's about where we are now. But I want to take you back maybe. Can we open up a little bit around what rock bottom was and depression and what you were feeling and maybe a couple of those things just before we get into the next part? Because the next part of your journey is amazing, obviously, but I kind of want to give some context, if that's cool.
Yeah.
To, this is not just us, I was depressed, because, mental health and stuff gets thrown around a lot these days, but we are genuinely talking about something that you grew from and where you were. So maybe you could elaborate on, kind of your, a couple of examples or day to day or just what it was like.
Yeah. So, I was depressed from 16 until when I was 20. And I was doing, years and years of counselling, therapy, saw lots of different people. Suicidal thoughts, self-harm, just really not in a good place, crying uncontrollably, sometimes in class, sometimes falling asleep in class because I haven't been able to sleep, alienating myself from people, I guess. But it was funny because a lot of people didn't know, because you don't really want to show people how you feel, right? So yes, occasionally I did burst out in tears in class, but I tried to hide that. And eventually when it did come out, I would get comments like, but you're the happiest person.
Absolutely.
I know.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm like, because I'm trying to hide it. I might smile. It doesn't mean I'm happy. I'm hiding, There's
100%.
Lots of things and lots of trauma that has happened in my life. I had a great upbringing. My parents are amazing, but stuff happens.
Of course.
So it's taken a lot of self-development. It's taken a lot of healing, and I really tried to go down that route of doing it all myself.
Yes.
Getting therapy. Yes. Not relying on medication.
Yes.
So I went through my first few years of university trying to do it that way. That did not go down well.
Yes.
I failed. Well, not failed, but I did not get the grades, anywhere near the grades that I needed to get into the first year of med.
Mm-hmm.
And then my next year was spent then, if I'm not going to be a doctor, what am I going to do?
What am I going to do?
So I started taking a whole bunch of different classes to try and see what I liked. But that was also the start of my taking antidepressants.
Okay,
So then I was trying to figure out where I'm going in life, what I enjoy at uni, what I want to learn, and also on this roller coaster of, okay, we're balancing out my, brain system
with these
with antidepressants.
This medication.
Yes. So trying to get the balance of, I've been so low for so long.
For sure.
And now taking antidepressants.
Yep.
And trying to figure that out. So the second year of uni, learnt a lot in terms of myself and what I did and didn't want to do
For sure.
in terms of like a job.
Can I just stop you there because it's super. I mean, a lot of people listening have never been on antidepressants. I've never been on antidepressants myself, and a lot of people though I think might have been either they might go back to a situation like this and thinking about how they were feeling in university and maybe they toughed it out. Or maybe they were crying in class, or, like everyone's got a different journey. Or there might be people that are also listening to this now, or, have found our podcast and are at that age or a similar age where they're thinking, or thinking, or when they're in a similar position. Can you give a little bit of, and I'm not looking for, like a novel, but can you give a little bit of a indication as to like what it feels like, and then also what the antidepressants feel like to take? Like, did you notice a shift in? Did you feel great all of a sudden, or did you feel bad? Like, what did it? Because you're talking about counsellors and all, and you're obviously putting in all the effort. But I really want to kind of understand, and hope some of our listeners can understand, like, what did it feel like going through that transition? You're very young.
Yeah.
At uni, depressed, taking medication that you might know a little bit about, not much about. What did it feel like?
Yeah. It really felt like a last resort to me, like that I had no other option because I'd been talking to people, I'd been going through that.
Was that the count? Like, you're talking about the counsellors?
Yeah. Counselling, therapy, and just nothing
was
seemed
working.
To be working.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
in terms of your day to day, so you're talking about it in therapy, but you're still waking up feeling hollow, not feeling.
Just feeling low, never feeling happy.
Yes. It's like
just being like either having no feeling at all, like being numb.
Yes.
Or I think the worst part was a lot of the time it was just numb.
Yeah.
Like things wouldn't make me happy. Things wouldn't necessarily make me sad. But then I would get to those really big dips where I would just be like, the world is so painful.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can go on.
And at that point as well, that's where you don't think about anyone else. There's no, mum and dad, or... for a lot of people, kids and brothers and sisters, it's, as you said, it's being in that numbness, like when you don't feel anything at all. And if you've not been in that position, and I'm sorry to, put you on the spot, but I think this is super valuable because we're trying to get people to understand who we are and where we come from. And I think a lot of people do understand what it's like to feel numb.
Yeah.
And to feel like there is no tomorrow in some instances, and there is no today. There is just this and how I feel, and it's an abyss, and it's dark and it's black, and there is nothing you can do to stop what's going on.
And it happened so long ago that sometimes I'm like, it's hard to remember how it really felt in that moment. And because it's sort of like you feel numb, but you also feel so much pain at the same time, which is a hard concept for me to wrap my head around, even though I've been through it, but just because it's been so long. But I think that's why like mental health mindset is so important to me now.
Of course.
Because I have come so far and I know what it's like when you don't have that, when you don't have that mindset, when you don't have that ability to, I mean, when I was depressed, I wanted to get better, but you don't have any.
You couldn't reach down and
like
grab.
You've got any means of being able to do it, right?
Exactly. And you're young as well, though. You're young. You're not that much experience in the world outside of being born, growing up. Going to school. Now you're at uni. All of these things have happened. Trauma has happened.
And at that stage, it wasn't widely talked about.
No. I mean, we're talking early 2000s, mid-2000s.
And it especially wasn't widely spoken about that it was happening to kids.
Oh, yeah, of course. No,
and so
Not like
even-
now. Not
yeah,
like
I
now,
think
which
we
is a
have
good thing. But
a
yes.
really good, well, not a really good, but we have a much better awareness now around mental health and mental health in youth.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the people that I spoke to at the time, you know, they're medical professionals, is what they do for a living. And they didn't have clarity around that either, which made it hard.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm really grateful that Ari is now growing up in a time when they're learning mental health in school, you know, like
100%.
it's becoming something that you talk about. But yeah, I just saw antidepressants was like my last shot, right?
So moving on to the antidepressants, was there any change in the feel? Was there anything like, did you?
Oh, 100%. I went
feel
from
great
not
or-
feeling anything
Yes.
to being, I was literally high. The first day that I took them,
Wow.
I felt like I was on actual drugs.
Were you on, was it a Prozac? Was it a
It was
lithium?
Prozac.
Yep.
I was on
You're
Prozac.
on Prozac,
I
yep.
was bouncing on my Swiss ball.
There you go.
Like in my
Like
hostel,
dorm room,
dorm room, hostel room.
So we're talking about a literal, like,
I
opposite,
went, yeah.
boom.
My
like, it
friends were
spiked me.
like-
Yeah.
They were like, what the hell? What
Yeah.
is wrong with you? I was like, I feel freaking amazing. I was like, oh my God, why did I not do this sooner?
Yeah, for sure.
But it comes with its ups and its downs, right? Like as much as I talk about, I was on such a high and it helped me feel good again, which helped me sort of like break out of that numbness and pain. But then trying to come off them was literally like trying to come off like drugs, like being a drug addict, trying to come off drugs. I had withdrawals. I had literal withdrawal symptoms where I was like sweating in the middle of winter. I was shaking. I was convulsing. Mum
Crazy.
had to come down and help me
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah.
So yes, good and bad. End of the first year, which also probably didn't help the marks of my final
Courses.
exams.
Of course.
And then throughout my second year, and then I got to a point, and I think this is where the antidepressants help, that they help me see happiness.
For sure.
Like I had forgotten what happiness was
Yeah.
before then.
That's a tough, like we're talking, what, 19, 20 at that stage, very young, very young.
Yeah.
To say that you'd forgotten what happiness is.
Yeah, like
at
I
that
couldn't
age.
remember how to be happy.
And like, I mean, there's probably people in their 40s, 50s, 60s that are in a similar mindset of, and then how do you define happiness? And, that is a rabbit hole in itself. But to be that young, and to be that numb and to be,
I just think
it's a very hard process to go through, darling.
it's an awful thing for anyone to go through. Like,
But
just
I also
thinking
know
about it now.
I also know that we're talking about something that was, 20 years ago almost,
Yeah, I'm
like,
that
well,
old.
a bit younger than that. Sorry, you're not that old. We're talking about something that's 15, 16 years ago. But if we know now as well that there are, and God bless you, we hear you if you are listening to this, there are 18, 19, 20, mid-20s, mid-30s, early 30s,
At
I should say,
any
people that are
age.
going through this at the moment right now where they,
Yeah.
and we get it. We know,
Yeah. And it's an awful thing to be in. And at the time, you cannot see a way out.
No.
And so I really, really was antidepressants.
Yep.
I really didn't want to take them.
Do you
but they
regret
helped
taking
me.
them now or?
I don't.
Yep.
But I will tell you that I was not meant to come off them when I did.
Yep.
And my doctors wanted to keep me
For sure.
on them.
Yeah.
So I was on them for a year, and I am thankful because they showed me what happiness could be, right? So I
Yep.
remembered, and I was like, amazing. But I knew that sort of fake happiness
Yes.
is not good
Yeah, of
for you.
course. Yeah.
Like I needed to be able to do it for myself. So I stayed on them for a year.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And is that how you would describe it? As like, you're obviously jacked up, got the Prozac going, feeling better, but that's a
Yeah.
fake happiness. It's not
a
coming
fake
from
happiness. Yeah. And I think, I don't know
for
if
you,
this
we're
is
not saying for
everyone's
everyone, we're saying for you
experience,
and your experience.
But so much of that year when I was on antidepressants, I can't remember.
Yeah,
it's like
for
I
sure.
didn't really live it.
Yes. So it was something else that was getting
It
you up,
was, yeah. It was just,
taking
it's
you around, getting
clouding,
your
it
stuff done.
clouds my
Clouds of
memory,
memory.
it
Yeah.
clouds my thoughts. I found it really hard to sort of concentrate. I remember literally walking out of one of my exams halfway through. Like I just walked out. I just didn't even finish it.
Yeah.
And we went on this whole holiday to Australia, and it's just all a blur.
Yeah.
Which is why I knew they weren't right for me.
So you made the decision.
I made the decision.
Doctor said, stay on the Prozac. It's
My
obviously
doctor-
working. You feel better. You know,
Yeah.
you've come a long way. And you said, no, this is not me. It doesn't feel like me. I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
I'm going to flush the pills.
My doctor and my
Where I go.
psychologist both wanted to keep me on, and I just decided no.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you've got to make the decision that's right for you.
Yeah.
And I told Mum, and I was like, I'm just going to come off them. And I told my doctor, and he's like, don't do that.
So you cold turkeyed it.
I cold turkeyed it.
And how'd that go?
Yes. I literally just woke up one day and was like, I choose to be happy.
Okay.
I'm making a choice.
Yep. I don't
I'm
need
gonna do
this.
it.
I don't need the
need
medication.
this.
I'm going to be happy on my own terms.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I went cold turkey. And yeah, that first week was hard.
Yep.
It was so hard. I just feel so bad for anyone that I lived with in the first 2 years of university, because it would not have been easy
Yeah.
to have been around me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But it really has helped me become obviously who I am today, and have amazing, like mental health and amazing like awareness,
Self-awareness.
around self-awareness
Yes.
around myself, my thoughts.
Well, you've been
my
through a
mindset.
roller coaster of life, at that stage before the age of 2021, like years of facing, as I said before, emotions that represent darkness and the abyss and numbness and these things that many people, and not that I'd want you to, but many people have never had to deal with. A lot of people, hey, life's good, blah, 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 off we go. Great positive attitude, mindset, good environment. But you had to go through all of that before the age of 2021. That's an incredible journey to go through at such a young age. So, of course, now, many years later, and having weaned yourself off your, the Prozac and the medication side of it, and then coming out the other side now, and where you're at, and we'll connect those dots, obviously, throughout this episode and the podcast. Yes, absolutely. To be able to I use it in terms of not coming back, but I use it in terms of grief. I think your depression was like at an early age, it was my grief.
Yeah. Well, you went through loss, such a massive loss.
Yes.
At a far younger age than most people would
And then,
experience.
but again, so what we're talking about is now late 30s for me, early 30s for you, late 20s, but you know what I mean? Like having the ability to look back on those things.
Yeah.
And be like, yes, I do remember what that was like, and understanding now how important mindset is in terms of how we go forward and what have you. So,
and which is why it's a huge part for both of us, why we always talk to Ari about mindset, how to instill a good mindset,
100%.
how to be able to pull yourself out of a negative mindset.
You had a hard time coming off the Prozac, but you managed to do it.
I managed to do it.
How did you feel after that?
Well,
when did you start feeling good and you wanted to?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll also just say, in my first year of uni, obviously everyone goes to university and puts on a bit of weight. But also being in a depression and a bit of a downward spiral, I put on, compared to what I had, a decent amount of weight, and it stuck around after just, my first year. So my second year being really unhappy, unhealthy, unmotivated to work out, by the end of the second year, I didn't like who I was.
For sure.
Yeah. and then making a choice to be happy, to change my life, to turn my life around.
Which is not easy either. Sorry to interrupt, but it's not easy either to be in that state where you are unhappy, to make a choice that, no, I'm in control of this. Yeah. I'm in control of my body. I'm in control of my emotions. I'm in control of this feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm going to switch this and go the opposite way.
And sometimes it does take something dramatic to help you switch.
For sure.
You know, so it was very much at the end of that second year that I then decided, I'm going to make the change. And I had summer school.
Yep.
To have to work through, and everyone else went away, you know, for holidays and stuff. And over that summer school, I had decided, making a change. I've come off my antidepressants. I've gotten over the awful, awful withdrawals that honestly made me feel like a drug addict.
For sure.
And I started going to the gym a lot. I started doing this thing, which I have started doing again. Mm-hmm. It's very cheesy, hip-hop abs.
Hip-hop abs. Love hip-hop abs. Love seeing in the living room doing the hip-hop abs. I was having my coffee yesterday. I was watching you there.
It was just my warm-up.
Whoever's taking the hip-hop abs.
Sean T.
Mate, shout outs to Sean T. That guy knows what's going on.
He's still doing it.
Is he still?
I mean, it's not called hip-hop abs anymore. He's still teaching, but
To be fair, I wasn't watching it, but I was definitely listening, and I was like, this guy can get you up and get you going.
Yeah, so anyway, so I started
hip-hop
doing
abs.
that. Lost all of the weight.
Brilliant.
Over
just
the
off
summer,
the exercise.
Off the whole, it's like
just to change, the mindset change.
Absolute change. I literally transformed my mental state, my physical state. I dropped all the weight. I was exercising. I was doing well at uni again because my grades had really, really, really dropped. And I decided, my parents had just bought a restaurant at that stage. And I decided I'm going to leave Otago University, where I was, move closer to my parents, because in that way I've got the support if I need it. I need to get out of my environment that I'm in, because clearly it wasn't the environment, but it wasn't helping, right?
For sure.
And so I moved universities, showed up as this complete new person. Everyone from at Otago was coming back to school, you know, and I was finishing up summer school, so I saw some of them for like a week. And they were like, oh my God, who are you? And I'm like, hi, bye.
Yeah.
I'm off to start my new life. And I literally, went to a new university.
Started again.
As a new me.
And started again.
Yeah.
After that roller coaster ride of going through.
And after not doing well with all of my classes, I then, started a new university, started fresh.
For sure.
Ended up graduating in the top, 10% of uni students.
Yeah.
With a first class honours.
In marketing.
Was
it marketing?
Yeah, marketing and public relations.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So let me ask you.
So a real roller coaster that ended up.
I want to ask. Obviously, absolutely, roller coaster. You know, what do you think? Not that you can accredit it, or maybe you can, to one thing. What do you think the change was? Was it something? Was it getting off the meds and the Prozac? Was it waking up? What was there? And the only reason I ask this is because similar people that have been in your position, which you can go and listen to in abundance, some of them say it's like a switch. It's like one day I just woke up and the light bulb moment. That's what they call it. The light bulb moment happened. And it was like an electric shock to my body, and I knew that I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I knew I had to make a shift, make a change. And it seems like with your journey, going from having a real rough time through the later part of high school with depression, getting into uni, struggles with the grades, struggles with the weight, struggles with all that, and then all of a sudden, as you said, then getting up to Waikato University, Hamilton, and then graduate. That's a pretty massive shift and change to go through.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can accredit that to? Is there anything that you can say, or was it like a combination of everything, or are you just trying to run away from me now because you've had enough. Is your bum getting sore? This is what happens, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to make sure you got a cushion under your bum. Put it this way. If someone's listening to this at the moment, regardless of age, and feeling the same, or maybe they have been on medication, maybe they're trying to get off it, or maybe they are going through the counselling situation, but maybe they're having a hard time and finding that. What do you think the turning point was for you?
It's funny that you said some people, it's like they just wake up and have an electric shock. I did not have an electric shock, but I literally just woke up one day and was like, I choose happiness. I choose me, right? I had two choices because I had been thinking, a lot in my darkest times about suicide and ending it. And so I had two choices. I can choose life, I can choose me, I can choose happiness, or I can choose the other option. So I literally just woke up one day and was like, I choose to be happy.
Yeah.
I choose me. So, and then it was just all about, making those choices that are going to help that progress for me. And yes, not every day has been easy.
No.
Not
well,
every day has been
well,
happy. Exactly. Yeah. But I just woke up one day and had enough and was like, I have the power to make this decision.
It's amazing. And
I decide not to be depressed anymore. And it's not going to be that easy for everyone. And like I said, it took years. It took years of work. It's not something that actually happened overnight.
Yeah. And it's not like when you made that decision, everything was just, amazing either.
It was a hard journey to get there, Yeah, you have to put in the effort. You have to put in the work. But yeah, I just made that choice.
Yeah.
And
it's funny, isn't it?
To do it for me.
Yes.
And not for anyone else.
You chose life.
Yeah.
And whatever that inner soul is, whatever that inner, and you know what it is, that inner fire starts lighting up again.
And I think
that's
you
what you
have
chose,
to
which is fantastic.
Not be afraid of change. You have to embrace the change, because if you're not willing to change, you're not willing to accept the change, then you're just still going to be stuck in that same routine.
It's 100% right. You have the choice, but you've got to embrace change.
Yeah.
You can't be afraid of change. I think the majority of people that I run into in terms of business and life and coaching and training, they'll come to you with all these ideas that they want to achieve. And the moment you hit them in the stomach, the moment you punch them with that electric bolt of, well, you can do that, but this is what you've got to change. And then all of a sudden,
this is what you're going to take action.
This is what you've got to do. You've got to take action. Yeah? This is what you've got to do. And then all of a sudden...
Absolutely. Because if I would have decided, all right, I choose me, I choose happiness, and then I didn't take action, I didn't do anything about it, I still stayed, at my same university, doing all the same things, it would have been really hard to pull myself out of that, 100%. Right? But yeah, sometimes it takes a geographical change.
Oh, absolutely.
If that's what it's going to take.
Mindset change.
A mindset change. Sometimes it takes that physical moving
to
change the mindset. Sometimes, I think did I mention it I've mentioned it in one of the podcasts at some point
We've done
in
4
time.
Now, so yes.
That, sometimes you outgrow people.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to outgrow things, outgrow mindsets, outgrow thoughts, outgrow beliefs, outgrow goals that you had in mind, outgrow where you live, who you spend time with, that's okay if you are changing and it's going to help you.
100%.
And so that's what I had to do. And I left quite a few people behind. Oh. Some of those people, I stayed in touch with. Some of those people I hadn't. But for me, it was the best thing I could have done.
And I think the proof is in the pudding for what you were saying. When you look at what was happening for you in Otago, when you were in that mindset and in that physical situation, facing depression, ongoing, spikes through taking medication, counselling, what have you. And as you said, just taking the change from moving universities, a physical change, and then getting to Waikato University, and then doing your degree there, and then look what comes on the other side of that. So you did right,
from someone who couldn't speak up in my classes.
Yes.
Who couldn't stand up and do a presentation in front of anyone, who was too nervous to even work in group projects together. Like I had no self-confidence, even though some people might have looked at me on the outside and could have thought differently, but that's on them, to be fair, but yeah.
Of course. Well, people are pricks and haters are haters, so what are you going to do? Some people are just arseholes, by the way, guys.
And there were a lot of arseholes.
Oh, there's a lot of arseholes out there, for sure.
Through what I was going through at the time. There were lots of people who did not make it easy on me.
But it's interesting that you say that. Sorry to interrupt again.
Yeah.
So I do that often, but in a good way. It's interesting that you say that, I was not someone that could stand up in class. And yet even, talking about the changes you made when you were at uni to the changes that you've made later on in life to where you are now, you've got your own podcast. You run a pretty big media company. Yeah. You're, a pretty big socialite and a face of McCabe Media. I think that's just this is exactly what we're going to get out of this. It's these are true stories. These are origin stories, and we understand, especially in your case, of what it's like to be out there and feel that numbness. But you chose you.
Yeah.
You chose you. You've made the switch. You put the light bulb on. It didn't happen overnight, but here we are, and that's great to see that kind of, transition, that journey happen.
Oh, it's been a massive transformation. Even just once I made this decision, once I moved to a different university, once I started taking different classes that I really felt, were for me and they felt good doing and I was excelling at them, I ended up doing this thing called case competition. If you do a BMS degree at Waikato Uni,
Hey,
shout
out to Waikato University.
Yeah. My team got in the top 4, so we had to present in front of, I think it was about 150 people.
Yep.
Including some top CEOs of New Zealand businesses to judge us. And it's something that I would have never, ever been able to do prior to that.
Yep.
But I did it, and then I was like, cool, I've done this. And then I ended up doing beauty pageants. Then I ended up being on stage.
Well, that's huge as well. That's another podcast in
front of thousands of people, and then being broadcast on TV to 40 different countries.
International
TV. So it's crazy.
I've seen the video. It's great.
It's crazy to think how, one decision, one change, one first step can then snowball and create so much momentum.
Absolutely.
People in terms of, mindset and development always talk about quantum leaping, right? But if you actually think about where I came from, where my rock bottom was, to there, and then where I've gone even now, it's actually crazy sometimes for me to think back and reflect on. And I'm quite glad that this is where this podcast has gone.
100%. This is genuine.
I don't think I often reflect on how far I've come. I quite often think about how far I've come since leaving working a 9-to-5 job and then starting my businesses.
But that was only in the last kind of 4 to 5 years, which is another 5.5 years, which is another story in itself, which we'll tell. But what we're talking about here is we're talking about a very authentic young woman going through some massive emotional and mental health struggles, and then, as you've said, this is not made up. This is real life stuff. Having to go through counselling, doctors, being prescribed, medication, making decisions, life-changing decisions, and like you said, we don't reflect on that. Sometimes we take it for granted.
And there's so much.
It's an amazing
more
story,
that like, it just wouldn't even fit into a podcast.
No. Well,
this is the very condensed
version. Yes.
Very
But we
condensed version.
want people to get an understanding
Absolutely.
of who you are and where you've come from.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is that, like, you go through such a physical, mental, emotional journey and transformation in your life, right?
Yes.
And it's easy for people to look at other people and to look at people on social media or look at our friends, people we know, and think we know them and think maybe, oh, well, their life looks easy or they've got it easy or, like things like that, or not understand what people have gone through. But people are like icebergs, I guess.
100%.
You only see what's on the tip and you haven't seen everything that it's taken to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just be kind to ourselves and kind to other people, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
You don't know the massive iceberg that they've got underneath the water there.
And a lot of people that have, got their own massive icebergs at the moment, I hope that people who are listening to this, and I'm sure a lot of people, not necessarily now, but in the future, are going to listen to this episode, and they are going to resonate with what you've gone through and who you are and where you're coming. Again, as we've said, like these podcasts that we're putting together, like this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
I would love to have more time, but we don't. But what I really wanted to get through on this one is this is a Candy McCabe origin story.
Yeah, this was not what we had planned, but this is what you've got.
But this is what you've got. So, maybe we'll just kind of put a little bit of a brief stop there. We'll get into part 2, which
I mean, obviously we'll keep, because although we don't have a lot of time tonight, we have got so much time and
exactly.
so many episodes.
Yes.
But yes, next time we'll be diving deep into the world of Chip McCabe, because I think that's only fair.
Well, hey, maybe it'll just become the Candy Show, and Chip. But look, before we finish off, I'd also like to say how proud I am of you. It's not easy, as I said at the start of this. It's not easy to do any kind of public speaking. In fact, the majority of the world are petrified of public speaking. They'd prefer death over actually standing up in front of an audience and delivering a speech. And here you are, really delivering life experiences, things that you've gone through. I'm really, really proud of you. And I think that the fact that this is where this podcast is going, and I hope that anyone that is listening, and anyone that also is going through similar things, please reach out. We've got emails, we've got socials, reach out. If you connect to Candy's story.
Yeah, if you're going through a hard time at the moment, or if you've been through a tough time, you're not alone, and there are people out there who would love, to talk to you.
Honey.
And rely on your friends, rely on your family. I hope they are there to support you. And yes, reach out. We'd love to hear your story if you feel comfortable sharing that. If you have any questions, send them through. You can message us on Instagram or Facebook, or we now have a new email address.
We do.
It is chipandcandyshow@mccabe.media.
100%.
Or if that's too hard to remember, just podcast@mccabe.media.
Also easy as well. Hey, look, we should probably finish here because our timers and our cameras and things are going off. But what a great start to your origin story. We are going to continue. This is episode 2, obviously, of the Chip and Candy Show. And we will be back with you soon. Darling, as always, I'd like to say a pretty big cheers. That was a great episode.
Cheers.
So well done. We made it to episode 2.
We made it to episode 2. Only took 2 goes this time.
I know.
And last time it took 3. So next time it will just take 1, surely.
Hopefully, yeah. Everything's working well. All right. I love you and very well done. Here's to episode 3.